Is the Philippines finally cracking down on foreigners? Let's find out.
Is the Philippines becoming harsher to foreigners? Because it seems like, every few weeks there's another headline. A foreign vlogger arrested, someone deported, a fugitive caught, or a sex offender denied entry.
Hmm.
Hi guys, it's Dee and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about what's actually happening. This is factual, this is news-based, and this isn't panic, I promise. Is the Philippines really cracking down on foreigners in general, or is the country finally drawing a clear line when it comes to abusive behavior? And just to be clear before we go any further, this isn't about nationality, this is about race or where someone comes from. This is about behavior, abusive behavior to be specific.
Are you sure about that? Are you sure about that? Because I can think of some very specific places, okay? I like to hold my own people accountable, so I'm only going to speak for that.
Now, let's start with something very important. The Philippines is still one of the most welcoming places culturally. I keep saying this again and again. People here are warm, they're patient, they're generous, and foreigners still enjoy a lot of flexibility here compared to many countries. What has changed, I think, is tolerance. There's less tolerance now for foreigners who treat the Philippines like a playground. Not in the sense of traveling or enjoying life, but in the sense of harassing people for content, humiliating locals on camera, violating immigration rules and acting untouchable, exploiting minors or vulnerable locals or communities, or pulling reckless stunts and hiding behind it's just content. When the government responds to these behaviors, it's very public. Arrests, deportations, and blacklisting. And that's why I think it looks like a crackdown. Now, the discussion didn't come out of nowhere. It came from a series of high profile, well documented cases that kept surfacing in the news and circulating online.
I will say, when it comes to these streamers, these content creators, they are the loudest, the most paid attention to. Thousands, hundreds and thousands of people watch these individuals. And when they do these acts and get in trouble, it makes everybody look bad because everybody's always on the internet. So when you make a bad impression on the internet, guess what? It comes back to us. It doesn't matter if you're a foreigner who just minds his own business and doesn't do anything, doesn't bother anyone. All of the Philippines looks at social media. So whatever they observe on social media, they're going to reflect it on you. So if you have someone that represents all foreigners in a bad light, then we're gonna get the flack.
And one of the most referenced is Vitaly Zdorovetsky. The Bureau of Immigration ordered his deportation and declared him an undesirable alien after he went viral for harassment and
Somebody tried to tell me that he was American. I said, nope, he is not American. He's Russian. He used to live in America, but no, he is Russian.
disruptive behavior in public. And according to the BI, he admitted to the acts during inquest proceedings. He was detained and he was deported to Russia just recently, I think January 17th, and he's blacklisted from re-entering the Philippines. He's declared persona non grata. And this isn't about targeting foreigners. It was about public order and accountability, and what's important is that the case didn't stop at deportation. The presidential palace later confirmed that three Bureau of Immigration officers were dismissed because there was a serious security lapse that was discovered. Because even in the BI detention, Vitali was apparently still able to record content, and that detail matters because it shows enforcement didn't end with a foreigner involved. Government officials were also removed for negligence and corruption. And when Vitali was deported, he was sent back to Russia and blacklisted. The fallout went further. And honestly, this is where some of the online reactions became almost comical. There were posts saying,
You know what's funny? After all that, he still didn't learn his lesson. There was no lesson learned. There was no lesson learned at all. It just gives such a bad image that someone like him can come over and just make a complete donkey out of himself, harass locals, be absolutely disrespectful, mock the people, and then the nicest thing you can do is to port him back to his home country where he can make more content and then talk about his journey because he's just laughing. He's laughing at everything over here. I mean, I see his content, well, clips of his content of him in the US with his friends, just being the same old person as he was before he came to the Philippines and when he came to the Philippines. He learned nothing. He is still the same rude, obnoxious, terrible individual. Same with many of these other content creators.
Things like, and I think there was also a video of him in an interview or something. Vitali is going to expose corruption in the Philippines. Like, dude, we know. You're not about to reveal anything Filipinos haven't already been openly talking about for years. If anything, what this situation showed is that when negligence or misconduct becomes visible enough, people do get removed. Even if it's imperfect, or even if it's late. Maybe next time, I hope it doesn't become late or imperfect. Then, in January 2026, another case drew attention. An Estonian vlogger named Sim Rosipu, known online as Pro-Life Traveler, was arrested by the Bureau of Immigration and moved for deportation after authorities cited harassing behavior, including incidents involving locals and minors, as well as immigration violations.
Then the guys, they look so monkeys sometimes. Like so monkey face. And when they're staring at me also, it's like...
What stood out in both cases
This is what I was talking about. This is what I was talking about. That's the guy saying they look like monkeys and mocking them, making fun of them, being disrespectful. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. I said this in my last video.
This was the language used by the authorities. The message was blunt. They said the Philippines is not a content playground. And that helps explain why it feels more frequent now because, harassment used to happen quietly. Now it's recorded, it's monetized, and broadcast publicly. And once it reaches that level of visibility, the government is forced to respond just as publicly. Now, and around the same period, another incident went viral involving a Russian vlogger known online as Mr. Jakol or Nikita Chekhov. Just as an FYI for my viewers, Jakol is a Filipino slang for, not really a slang, I don't know if it's a slang, but it's a Filipino term for masturbation. And he posted rage bait content claiming he came to the Philippines to spread HIV. Imagine that. Which understandably caused public alarm. And the Bureau of Immigration, working with health authorities, later confirmed that when he was arrested, he was medically tested and found to be HIV negative. Officials dismissed the claim as an attention-seeking stunt.
These people, I don't understand what's going on with these individuals these days. It seems like everyone's goal for content and attention is to rage bait. Rage bait. People, it makes no sense. There is some kind of mind virus, there's some kind of disease going on, some kind of mental illness going on with these individuals where they'll just do anything. And for some reason, the Philippines is just a big playground for this madness. It's like every time you have a place of just peace and things are just, normal, there's these individuals that come in just to stir the pot with rage baiting, harassing locals, and just ruin it for everyone.
But stress that's spreading real or fabricated, things has consequences. And taken together, these cases point to the same pattern. A growing willingness by the authorities to act against foreigners who engage in harassment, intimidation, disinformation, or public disorder. So when people ask why all of this feels intense, the answer isn't the Philippines woke up one day and decided to be hostile. It's that the line is being drawn more clearly and more publicly than before. Now, if we zoom out, a huge part of what people call a crackdown has nothing to do with influencers. The Bureau of Immigration reported that its fugitive search unit arrested 180 foreign fugitives in 2024, up
Damn.
from 128 the year before. And in another release, authorities said 268 foreign fugitives were arrested within just half the year. And the message from the BI has been consistent. The Philippines is not a sanctuary for alien criminals. There's also
Man, are you serious? All those people be coming over here? Yeah, people are treating the Philippines like it's a playground. They got trouble in whatever country they come from, so they book a plane ticket over here to do the same madness that they were doing back home over here, and now just now they're getting caught. All thanks to these vloggers, these content creators. All thanks to them. I mean, I guess it works out. It works out. But who's going to get the shit end of the stick? You know, the people who follow the rules, the people who don't bother anyone. I just hope that none of this kind of, backfires and ends up harming us with, stricter laws, or I don't know. I don't know. I just hope that we don't get touched.
been a much stronger focus on child protection. In 2024 alone, the Bureau of Immigration barred 137 registered sex offenders from entering the country and placed them on the blacklist. And this isn't just happening at the border. In April
Wait a minute. They didn't do that before? Oh, man. Forgive me. I'm a little slow, but this is all new to me.
2025, a Swedish national wanted for child rape was arrested in Pampanga through coordination between the NBI, the Bureau of Immigration, and Swedish authorities, showing how closely the Philippines is now working with international partners on crimes involving children and trafficking. And in another case tied to the same issue, and just this week too, the authorities tracked down a Swedish child sex offender who fled the Philippines to evade justice and hid in a hotel catering largely to European guests. And the operation required coordination between the NBI and the international child protection groups, with undercover work used to confirm his presence before a lawful raid could be carried out. And that case matters because it shows how deliberate and careful these operations are. They're not impulsive, it's not random, and it's not targeted at foreigners in general, but focused on predators actively trying to hide. So when people lump all of this together and say, the Philippines is suddenly being harsh, it's important to understand what's really driving it. Now, I want to pause here because this conversation isn't one-sided. There are also cases that show the other side of this conversation.
Listen, I completely understand. I completely understand. The Philippines has got to do, what's best. We got to get these type of people out of here because they're harmful. They're harmful for everyone and kind of a danger. So I completely understand. So I'm not even gonna bat an eye. I mean, I had no idea that that was going on. Now I have heard rumors. I have actually heard rumors of certain foreigners going into provinces for specific reasons and doing God knows what. And as I hear these stories, it kind of makes me a little bit sick. And I got depressed for a little bit because me being raised in an environment where there aren't really many people, being from Montana, you don't really hear these awful stories and about people you actually don't see how disgusting and evil people can truly be. From me being raised around, a bunch of animals, mountains, snow, wildlife, everything, and then I go to the city, to civilization, and I just hear about this stuff. It actually just makes my brain kind of swirl in my skull. But yeah,
conversation, where the Philippine state itself was the one that was harsh, abusive, and criminal even toward a foreigner. One of the most disturbing examples happened in 2016 during the height of Oplantokhang and the wave of extrajudicial killings tied to the government's war on drugs. That year, Ji Ik-ju, a South Korean businessman, was kidnapped from his home, falsely accused of being involved in illegal drugs, and taken to Camp Crame. Camp Crame was the national headquarters of the Philippine National Police. Now, he was extorted for money, with his family asked to pay ransom under the belief that he was still alive. And in reality, he was tortured and killed by rogue police officers, the very people meant to enforce the law. What gave me goosebumps was what happened next. His body was cremated, and his remains were flushed down a toilet in an apparent attempt to erase evidence. That case sparked international outrage, particularly from South Korea, and severely damaged the Philippines' global reputation. It exposed deep systemic problems in law enforcement at the time, corruption, abuse of power, and impunity under the cover of the drug war.
jeez. That's got to be the most disrespectful way to be ended. Cremated and flushed on a toilet? I mean, who wouldn't be pissed?
And several officers were eventually convicted, but by then, the damage to the victim's family, to public trust, and to the country's image had already been done. So, yes,
You're not
this
fixing that.
conversation isn't one sided. The Philippines has also failed foreigners in the past, especially when those foreigners became victims of state abuse and not perpetrators. And that's exactly why enforcement today must be firm but lawful, and accountability must be fair and consistent. Whether the person involved is foreign or Filipino or powerful or ordinary. Ju's case was not an isolated one, sadly, and it was one of many documented instances during the war on drugs where people were wrongfully accused, abused, or killed, exposing how dangerous unchecked power can be. So, why does it feel like, all of this is happening so often? I think it's because social media plays a huge role with all of this. Because once something goes viral, it becomes a public safety issue. It becomes a reputation issue, sometimes even a diplomatic one. And that forces faster action. And there's also the reality that, some foreigners arrive in the Philippines believing old stereotypes, that rules aren't enforced, that they can pay their way out, that locals won't report them. And yes, that's true in a lot of cases, but the Philippines has weaknesses, red tape, inconsistency, corruption. We all know that, and I've talked
Yep.
about that extensively in my past videos. But the
Listen, we already know this. Everyone's been talking about this for years. Red tape, corruption. I see it all the time in my comments. I keep mentioning that. We know this. We know this. Heard it about 100th time. But what can you do about it? It's not your country. It's for Filipinos to be, dealing with it. But anyway,
pattern is clear. If someone becomes loud, reckless, or abusive enough, especially toward children or ordinary Filipinos, the country does not hesitate to respond and make an example of you. Now, a lot of Filipinos also raise a valid concern.
yes, because they have a law. You know, it's I forgot what it's called, but it's like protection. It's a law that protects women and children. So, for instance, you can't yell at a woman. You can't do anything that puts a woman in with fear. I can't explain like the circumstances or the scenario. I just know that as a foreigner, or as a man, period. There's just, you can't be, out of order. You can't be yelling. You can't be arguing, or else you're going to be in trouble with the law, because there's a law that, protects women and children. So that's just one of the things that you have to deal with and be mindful of. So you got to keep your temper under control.
Why abusive foreigners are dealt with quickly while corrupt officials or powerful local offenders often aren't. That frustration is justified. Accountability should never be selective. My view is simple. Abusive foreigners, especially predators and repeat offenders, should be removed immediately. But the same urgency should apply
Shouldn't
to
even be there in the
locals who
first
exploit
place.
others, especially those in power, because the rule of law only works when it's consistent. So, is the Philippines becoming harsher? I don't think so. The Philippines isn't becoming harsher to foreigners overall. It's becoming less tolerant of those who abuse Filipinos or the system. And if you follow immigration rules, you respect culture, you don't harass locals, you don't exploit children, and don't treat communities like props for content, you're still very welcome here. But if you come here thinking kindness equals weakness, the message is getting clearer. Hospitality is real, but it's not immunity.
So unfortunately, for some people, kindness is considered weakness. So if people are overly kind or just kind, they get ran over and taken advantage of. And I've seen these individuals in real life so many times, and I learned the hard way trying to be kind. And then when you be kind, there's certain individuals, they end up disrespecting you, stepping all over you, and it makes it not necessarily uncool to be kind. It just makes it, let's just say, it puts you with walls up and your guard up, and you just don't want to even try to you know openly be trying to be kind. You'll be nice at a distance, but you don't want to just be showing kindness and stuff. And it's true, Filipinos are kind and everything. They're always trying to help, and they'll go out of their way to do things for you. But I see a lot of foreigners that take advantage of that and take advantage. Oh, for example, the the expat or foreigner that had become here in the Philippines and had a operation going on where he had Filipino employees, was taking advantage at the fact that the employees would not say no to being overworked, to overtime, to the point where one Filipino ended up getting hospitalized because he had a heart condition and was working too much. And when you don't learn to say no, that you can't, and when you become a yes person, it just signals certain individuals that, oh, they'll do anything I tell them. They'll do anything for me. You know how many times when I go out in public and I sit there and hear conversations from other foreigners talking about Filipino people saying that, oh, they'll do anything for you. They'll do this, they'll do that. Whether it's women, children, it's sickening just to hear it. And it's like, is this the mentality that some of these guys have when they come over here? Is that they can just come here and tell people what to do and be slave drivers? I mean, it's messed up. It's messed up. I mean, it's not how I was brought up. If I am around when I'm around Filipinos, I ask politely, and I try not to be an inconvenience, or try not to make sure that things are an inconvenience for them. I try to be considerate. But some of these guys, they don't care. They just do this, do this, do this, like this, the way I want to. And it's like, man, reminds me of being back in the States and working around these individuals.
If you're a foreigner living here or planning to move here, do you see this as a crackdown or just enforcement catching up? And if you're Filipino, do you feel protected by these actions, or do you feel accountability is still too selective? That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. And if you found this video helpful or thought-provoking, or you learned something, please consider subscribing to my channel, because it really helps me support the work I do here. And you can also join my channel memberships if you want to support more in-depth discussions or behind-the-scenes content. As always, feel free to share your thoughts respectfully in the comments. I like reading them. This has been Dee, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!
All right, that's it. So I'm gonna leave her video in the bio. I mean, not the bio, in the description. But I want to say that women and children are the most vulnerable. And when it comes to these guys that come here and they take advantage of the women and the children, it puts a very bad light on us. So this is good that they are cracking down on some of these foreigners, because it protects the most vulnerable, especially out in the provinces too, because these guys go to the provinces and they're always around these women, they're always around kids, and honestly, it's just not a good light. It's not a good light, and it's a good thing that it seems like there is a balance, that the Philippines is starting to balance itself out by cleaning out some of the bad stuff, the bad people, bad people with a bad reputation, the criminals, because it gives room for the decent ones to kind of show that foreigners are not, they're not this way, because the loudest, or the ones that are bad are the loudest ones in the room. So no one hears about the ones that stay quiet, that mind their own business. But let me know what you think in the comments. If you like this video, give me a like, subscribe. I'm about 30 subscribers away from 1,000. Trying to get there, but I can't get there with your help. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.